Yeah, it is remarkable. You know, in towns across the state, we're seeing budgets increasing, we're seeing property taxes go up. And I can't imagine a scenario where citizens would say, well, yeah, I think it's a great idea for some of my tax dollars to be spent on surveilling me. Um, that's really what's going on here. As towns are installing these, then requiring citizens to pay for them, to pay for surveilling themselves. And I'm glad that Sanford and Wells found that unacceptable and didn't let that move forward at all. Is there any specific legislation that you're working on that would address this at the state level? I appreciate that and agree that towns should put forward ordinances. Is there anything you're working on at the state level as well?
Although there's no bill that we've decided this will solve the problem, the existing ban or regulation of automatic license plate recognition technology absolutely has to be strengthened and updated.
Mm-hmm.
As we said earlier, the world is very different from when that statute was first adopted in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And the statute hasn't kept up with the times.
Yeah. So can we expect to see a bill moving forward in the next legislature, hope to see a bill in the next legislature that would do just that and strengthen the existing law?
The ultimate solution has to be statewide.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's in this next legislative session or the one after,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a broad coalition of people from every party
Mm-hmm.
that hates surveillance, that wants nothing to do with Big Brother, and we hope to work on legislation to strengthen our ALPR ban.
Well, certainly Lead Maine would support legislation keeping the nanny state out of Maine and strengthening our laws on these automatic license plate readers and protecting Maine citizens, protecting their constitutional rights.
You know, there's one related thing that I'd like to add, which is even if we had a statewide ban on these cameras, the government still has the capability of buying some of this information or getting it from private sources. And there's an unfortunate legal doctrine called the third-party doctrine that says that if you give your information over to another company, then the government doesn't need a warrant to obtain that information from that company, even though the government would need a warrant to obtain that information from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need some state law or court ruling that prevents the government from going around the warrant requirement just because a private company has collected information that the government would need a warrant to collect. It doesn't mean the Fourth Amendment goes up in flames. And unfortunately, that's what has happened since the rise and spread of technology and surveillance, both in private hands and in public hands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for us to restrain the government from obtaining these technologies and using them, but it's also important that we restrict the government's ability to get data about us from private sources.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think this is an issue that we have worked on. There's some nuance there. We have a privacy bill that has struggled in the legislature. It almost passes and then it doesn't pass. And you know, the Maine legislature, we have not quite gotten it right to get a broad enough consensus to get it across the finish line. But I completely agree. The government being able to skirt around and get this information on private citizens by other means is sneaky and wrong. And I think we do have to stop that. The question is, how do we do that by balancing all of the concerns?